All right, welcome everyone. I'm back at you with another episode. And on today's episode, I interview the author of multiple Amazon bestsellers, including his literary magnum opus, The Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, which has sold over 100,000 copies, and his just recently released five-star book called Just Feel Good. The Secret to the Life You've Always Wanted is available now on Amazon, Audible, Kindle, and Apple Books. And it launched as the #1 bestseller in the coveted New Age, New Thought category on Amazon. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Winner's Circle, Andrew Kapp.
Derek, thanks so much for having me. So excited to chat with you. And you're my first. I don't know when this will release, but you're my first interview since knowing that I hit over 1,000 copies sold of the new one for Just Feel Good. So super grateful to be having this conversation wherever we might take it.
1,000 and on the way to 100,000 plus, which you have with the book to your right there,
You're
that
just hoping,
Last
man.
Law of Attraction book. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, listen, trying to have something for everyone, and that's kind of like the point of the new book there. So whoever wants to buy whichever, I'm gratefully going to accept it, either book.
yeah, we'll get into the book shortly, but I just want to ask a couple of questions that I start every interview with, and I asked you these same ones on the first interview I had with you,
Mhm.
but the answers may be different. And for the people that didn't listen to the first interview, check that out. But this one will also be great, and we'll be discussing some new topics in your new book. But the first question is, what do you love about your world right now, Andrew?
Mm. It will be very interesting to listen back because I don't remember what my answer was then. I mean, what I love right now, it sounds very self-serving, but it's authentic. So I'll give the answer. Like what I love about my world right now is the feedback that I'm getting on the new book because I wrote it really fast. The book itself was written in less than a month. The entire publishing process, I began writing the book on January 26th. And on March 24th, 2 days before 2 months, it was already a #1 bestseller. So what
Oh,
I love
wow.
is just the speed with which I was able to implement this idea and bring it to fruition. And when you go that fast, obviously it really is reaffirming to get positive feedback and to get people saying, "Hey, this book delivered in a great way, but in a different way than the last one."
Yeah, absolutely. Let's discuss how you got that book from writing it on in January 26th to being published. And the published was, I think, the last week of March, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so just like less than 2 months. How did you go from begin writing it to publishing it and having it on all platforms? So let's walk through that because I think that's like a very important thing for someone out there that has an idea and they just think it's just like ears like unsurmountable, like they can't do it.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah, so
there's a lot
walk
to
us
say
through
on it,
that.
actually. Yeah, yeah. So quick little thing, and I'm not sure how many people are going to be listening to this and how many people are going to be watching, but for people who are watching, I'm holding up to the camera right now the Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read and Just Feel Good. They're spines, so you can see the difference in length.
Uh,
Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read is 208 pages, and that took me 9.5 weeks to write, not to publish, just the writing portion, 9.5 weeks. This one is under 100 pages, so it's less than half the size. So obviously, I'm leaning on the fact that I didn't have to create as much content in order to accomplish this. But I think also a contributing factor to the speed is the fact that I've been here before, I've done this before. So anyone out there who's publishing their first book, you're going to go as fast as you're going to go. And that needs to be okay with you because, the screens in order to uploading the cover creation is a whole different thing, of course, but uploading the cover, formatting the manuscript, having somebody on Fiverr who is going to master the audio files, going through the recording process, having my studio set up where I know that the mic is okay. And I know the way, because I used ScreenFlow, I know the settings. So a lot of it has to do with just familiarity with the tools, but also that part aside, just following through on whatever idea. And, I think the hugest part is the book itself. I've never been a proponent of making my final draft the first time. Like, I spit out a first draft and then I massage. And I don't know if I said this on the last interview, but I don't even see myself as writing books. I edit books. I spit out a
Mhm.
first draft that's not fit for publishing, and then I have that idea in front of me, and then I can move words around, move sentences around, say, hey, that idea actually should be 5 chapters from now, and that one on the end should be in the beginning because it sets up the whole thing. So I'm almost like a director of sorts, especially because this is a nonfiction book, but obviously would apply for fiction, because what you're doing is you're managing the reader experience from the very beginning. So I know I went a bunch of different directions, but this really goes down to having done this so much and driven myself crazy so many times, that what seems like a very fluid process is only fluid on the outside because I've done it so much. But also, by that same token, once you give yourself permission to go down a path and to write a book and to publish and all these different pieces, a lot more pieces will fall into place a lot more quickly because you're no longer getting in your own way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm so curious. Like, I want to trace the process from thought in the mind to the publishing. And so, from what I hear, it's just in order to write a book, well, you first have to start. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. And um, a lot of people, they don't even get there. They just don't think they have that voice in their head, that resistance, that little voice in their head who creates doubt. So what is your experience with that voice, and how do you overcome it? And it can be in relation to the book, but just in general. But that's like the first step to write a book, is you have to put pen to paper and start. But that voice in our head that creates doubt often stops people cold in their tracks. So
Yeah.
address that first.
So for me, well, just so we're clear, doubts exist, but probably not in the same way that they would for other people. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is I would not prefer to fail. I would not prefer to fall flat on my face, but I'm not worried about that happening when I'm writing a book. For me, my mindset, and it sounds I don't know, cliche, or it sounds a little grandiose, but my vision is, okay, this idea, how is it going to serve the person on the user end, the reader? And when I put
Mm-hmm.
myself in that state of mind, it's no longer a question of can I do this? It's a question of how well can I do this so that it's worth the money that somebody's going to spend when they pick that book up. And
Yeah.
for me, part of this process is so ideally you're going to have a really good idea, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and then you need a really good title. And once you have a good title, and I always title the books in the beginning. Once you have a title, it's something that's almost dragging you across the finish line as like a marker, as a standard that you are making sure
Mm-hmm.
that you rise to every time you're writing a chapter, every time you're putting a paragraph down, every time you're organizing the book. Everyone has their own way of doing it. Some people, they like to name the chapters beforehand. Some people have it all in their brain and they're trying to do a brain dump. Like, everyone has their own way of doing it. But for me, the key part is I'm not worried about failing, because I realize all that's going to do is slow me down and harm the quality of the end product. For me, it's not can I do
Mm-hmm.
this, it's how can I do this as well as possible.
Perfect. That's a great strategy. So think of the title. Some people like start with the chat, also write the chapters and then fill in the places. What about the demographic? Are you concerned? Like, do you choose the demographic in the audience? What part does that come in?
So I'm a bit of a rule breaker. I think it's very wise to choose a demographic and write to that demographic, so long as you're confident that whatever you have is going to serve that demographic. I'm more of an opposite person. Like, I don't recommend anybody kind of take this path unless it feels good for them. But I'm more
Yeah,
like, let me just write the best book possible, and then I'll figure out in the marketing like what demographics to reach out to. And what I
yeah,
mean by that is, I mean, you know, law of attraction as a concept, there is a demographic there, but I'm not worried about male or female. I'm not worried about age brackets. I'm not worried about economic brackets. I'm not worrying about political brackets. I'm just saying, okay, listen, there's a certain type of reader across all ages and across all cultures that is going to be into law of attraction in some way, shape, or form, or into personal development, or into success, or wherever you want to codify these things. I just make the idea really good, as hopefully I do. And then in the marketing, I'm like, okay, what are good books that people are already reading that I should kind of put this with? So you go on Amazon and you say, okay, let me find the top law of attraction books, and then we pay Amazon to put my book as a sponsored item on those listings. It's that simple. So again, I think there's an intelligent way and a strategic way and a wise way of saying I want a certain, male or female, 18 to 49, whatever it might be. I've never personally done that because I've never found anything personally that I think fits into a specific bracket of that level of particularness.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And then the cover. So the cover is something you also you find the title and then you also create the cover at the beginning as well.
Yeah, well, we know the cliche, don't judge a book by its cover. And the reason
Yeah,
that cliche exists is because everybody judges a book by its cover. And
yeah,
I have another book we don't have to talk about it much, but I only bring it up because it's called 3 Words I Used to Sell 100,000 Books, where I go through the whole game plan of how I sold 100,000 copies of the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. And I bring this up because in this book, I kind of articulate how important of a 1-2 punch the title and the cover really are. Because no
hmm
matter how brilliant your book may be, no one is going to read it if they're not first interested enough and intrigued enough by the cover and the title in order to even look at the listing on Amazon or wherever it might be.
yeah,
Um, for me, the cover is a very important piece where I try to have it developed as early as possible because that also helps push me and motivate me. Because when I go to the computer and I start typing, for the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, I actually had the cover. The design was very fast. It was so easy. And I would look at the cover and almost meditate on it before writing a chapter because it kind of like reminded me of like, this is what the prospective reader is going to see on Amazon when they're making a decision to buy. This is the
yeah,
vision that I have to live up to for them in the actual book so that it actually serves
yeah,
them. Just Feel Good was a different concept where it actually took me a lot of revisions, and the cover was one of the final cover was one of the last pieces because I really, really struggled with finding the way. And I gave it was a brief bonus to I have users subscribers free bonuses for 3 Words I Used to Sell 100,000 Books. I sent them a
yeah.
video where I walked them through all the drafts of Just Feel Good so they can see how dramatically difficult it was for me to get this final version where you have the scroll or the parchment and you've got the blue sky. There was so many different combinations. So that one, unfortunately, I did not have to really drive me every day, even though I would have liked it. But looking at the end product, I'm very pleased with it. But it took literally hundreds, and I mean high hundreds, not low hundreds, high hundreds of minor revisions over months trying to get that the right way, tweaked so that I'm finally satisfied with it.
Wow. Well, I love how it turned out. I have one right here showing it to the screen for the people listening along, but I love it. It's a beautiful cover. Okay,
Thank you.
so you wrote your first draft, you have picked the title, you've created the cover perhaps, and then
Mhm.
the big part is the editing. And then there's two roads here. So there's self-publishing or there's getting a publisher. Your books are self-published.
Yes.
So you are doing the editing versus if you were with a publisher, the publisher would have an editor do the editing and then give you notes, correct?
Yeah, and there's a reason for this. And again, I'm not saying that I necessarily recommend the way I'm doing it. The reason I do it for myself is one, I'm a pretty decent copy editor. Although after I first publish, I often find about 100 typos, which I quickly fix and quickly re-upload. But I'm a control freak. That's the reason that I do it this way, because I know I have a very specific vision for better or worse of what the book is going to be. And I know that if I have a publisher and a big editor and I send it to them, they're going to have their own views that are in conflict with the actual reasons for me doing something a certain way. I might make a chapter conversational or not conversational, and there might be a very specific purpose to that because I have a method to my madness where the reader is going to receive the information in a certain order that's going to make it easy for them to consume and implement. I've got like a whole master plan in my mind of like how is this going to lay out perfectly, and I personally believe that for me, my books, an outside editor would disrupt that process, and I wouldn't agree with them anyway.
Hmm. So you're editing, you edit your own work.
Mhm.
How many times, like how, like what does that look like? How many times did you have to review, delete, make changes? And how, like what do you do with the deletions? Like it's hard for a writer to just discard something that they wrote, or is that maybe saved for later? And like, yeah, walk us through that your editing process.
Yeah, so it's multiple passes. Like for example, like Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. I literally went through that like probably 9 or 10 separate times where I just like kept going through the book over and over, doing all these little tweaks. And yeah, there were certain things that I determined interrupted the flow of the book, but I didn't want to get rid of them. So what I did was I took them out of the book and I turned them into extra bonuses. So I turned them
Yeah.
into content that I can still give to readers. But I took them out of the process because above all else for me, it's about the smooth progression from page one to the last page. For Just Feel Good, it was different. So I would write a chapter, just like spit it out, and I'd clean it up, and then I'd really go through it and try to make it perfect. And then I do it for another chapter and another chapter and another chapter. And I did that for about halfway through writing the book. And then it got to a point where I just wanted to write the rest of it and I lost patience with myself. So half of the book, I kind of like went over and over and over a chapter at a time. And then the second half of the book, I kind of went through like a one longer pass a couple of times. So I actually changed my style, trying to keep up with myself and being impatient with myself. But
Yeah.
again, it's practice. Everything is practice. So again, you get a lot more comfortable with cutting content out if you don't think that there's purpose to it. And for me personally, a thing that I've had to overcome is just repeating myself, where I would say something 5 different ways. And I'm like, okay, Andrew, maybe you can get away with saying this 2 or 3 different ways. You don't have to say this to the reader 5 different ways. Pick the 2 or 3, get rid of the other 2, and then try to narrow it down from there. So just it becomes an iterative process of over and over again. Again, like I'm not writing the book, I'm editing the book, I'm sculpting and molding the book. And I'm just trying to make it closer and closer to what I want to be. And then getting just hypercritical on myself. And in the end, I try to, there's making sure that the ideas make sense, and then there's making sure that there's no typos or misspelling. You know what I mean? Just random stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
last part. I don't like if I catch a typo, cool, but I'm not looking for typos until the very end where I'm satisfied with the flow of the book. And
Hmm.
then in the final process, after all said and done, you upload, you get on a real copy on Amazon, and you
Yeah.
just see things in your hand in print differently than you do on a computer screen. So
Yeah.
I often find anywhere from 50 to 100 little typos or little things that I quickly fix and I quickly
Yeah.
upload. And I mean, I don't know if you call these books collector's items or anything like that, but there's certain typos in Just Feel Good that probably only the first 20 people have their hands on, because I quickly fixed the book before anyone really bought after that.
Interesting. Okay. So once you have edited the book, then you have to format the book. And where are you writing this? Like, are you using like what document are you first writing your first draft in? Where are you editing, or is it all in the same thing? And then how are you formatting, and how does it work with Amazon?
Yeah, so the way it works is Amazon has certain book sizes that they can do. Like, but believe it or not, the Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, which is 8.5 by 5.5. I'm holding it up again. My
Okay.
original vision was that it was like one of those mass little paperbacks. I always envisioned someone like bringing it in their bag to the beach or something like that. And Amazon didn't have that size. So there's very specific sizes that if you're going to publish on Amazon, of course, that they have available to you. And once they do that, I mean, it's all about going into your Word document and formatting the margins to fit that, deciding whether you want the page numbers to be in the middle or the right or the left, just whatever might make sense for the book itself. Because what you're going to do, at least a great way or an easy way of doing it, is in the end, you're going to write it in Word, or you can do it on Google Docs, whatever, and then you're going to format it into a PDF, which is so easy. You hit File, hit Save As, choose PDF, and then it does that for you. And for me, the really cool thing is, and I'll show you, I'm holding up now all 3 of these books. You can see that they are all the same size. So after the formatting process of the Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, I literally took the original file and I wrote 3 words I use to sell 100,000 books over that template. So I never had to do any more formatting. I just had to type new content. And then I
Yeah.
wrote Just Feel Good over that template. So the template is
Yeah.
the same because the book sizes are the same. And it really is easy. Anyone can do it on their for themselves. But if they ever have any doubts, they could always hire somebody on Fiverr to say, this is what I want the size to be. Format this for me. Choose the font of the size of the font and the chapters and all that stuff. I mean, there's no one right way to do it. There's simply a way of doing it that it's going to look good to you that fits inside the margins.
Yeah, okay. So you have the title to start off, then the cover, then your first draft, then the edit, then you do the copy editing, then you
Mm-hmm.
format it. And now it seems like the book is ready. Or am I missing a step? I feel like it's ready, and then it's the
Well,
marketing.
so one thing to keep in mind, and again, like you look at that copy you have right now, you're not just looking at a cover, you're looking at a cover, a spine, and a back cover. That's one massive image that is uploaded for the print version. So
Yeah,
again, what you do is assuming you're doing with Amazon or whoever, you tell them your page count, you tell them the size of the book, and they'll actually give you a PDF template saying, this is how big your image has to be. Here's how the big, the spine has to be, depending on how many pages, front cover, back cover, and you build, in Photoshop or Canva, or you hire someone to do it for you, but you build the cover on that template because that's also going to be necessary. That in terms of, the print version is all you need. But then if you want Kindle, Amazon has a program called Kindle Create, where you
yeah,
literally like upload your Word document to which it's a free download. You download Kindle Create, you upload your Word file to it, and then you tease around, you play around, and you get that also formatted, because it's got to be like one formatting is print, another formatting is Kindle. And then, of course, if you want an audiobook process, it's a whole different thing, because you have to decide whether you're going to record it or someone else is going to record it. Are you going to
yeah.
do the editing yourself or someone else? I'm very much, again, a control freak / one-man show, where the only thing that I don't do in the process personally is the mastering of the audio, because I don't know how, and it isn't worth my time. So, I found someone on Fiverr who does that for me at a really affordable
Okay,
price.
perfect. And then so the cover art, you do that yourself using Photoshop or Canva, or did you outsource that to Fiverr as well?
Yeah, so I did for the covers for the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. The cover of that was done in Photoshop. The cover for Three Words I Used to Sell 100,000 Books was the concept was in Canva, but I made the final version in Photoshop. And Just Feel Good, I just used Canva. But yeah, Canva was for everything. So for that one, so I've kind of like evolved in my tools and my style, and in
Mm.
the end, what it comes down to, assuming you're going to design your own cover, is getting comfortable with the tools and getting better and better at hopefully having something that's going to look good. Above all else, my advice to people, especially since you want a really good title, you never want your cover to obscure your title. You never want the title to be difficult to read. In Three Words I Used to Sell 100,000 Books, I call it the Amazon squint test, because when people are on Amazon and they're looking for different books and your cover comes up, it's not going to be really big in their face the way you're designing it on your computer screen. It's going to be a really small image. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you shrink yours down as you're designing and saying, okay, at this small image, can the title be read? Can it be clear? Is it appealing? Is the color, the color concept good? Is it something that I really want that's really going to make people enticed and interested enough to click on the listing and learn more about it?
Yeah, yeah, great. So now the marketing, and you have a multifaceted approach. You mentioned one of them is by going on your kind of the category of your book. So this is like new age, new thought, and kind of seeing what are the popular books in there, and then buying advertisements to put your book as like kind of the sponsored ad when people search for like for example like an Esther Hicks book, and then your book will also pop up with that. It'll be the sponsored ad. So that's one way you market, and you just do that through Amazon, correct?
Yeah, well, again, Amazon will let you choose like specific books to go in front, but also you can choose keywords. Law of Attraction when you say keyword, sometimes you mean key phrase, because it's just not just words, but combination of words. So
Yeah,
Law of Attraction, but keep in mind, Law of Attraction is something that everybody's advertising for, so it's going to be an expensive word,
yeah,
and so understand that if you use that word and then your ad comes up and someone clicks on it and then they don't buy the book, you've spent a chunk of money just to get them to look and say no. So there's considerations, but yeah, so Amazon ads, you can choose keywords, you can choose specific books. And then in terms of marketing, everything is different. When I was marketing the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, I went into Facebook groups about the law of attraction and just gave value bomb after value bomb after value bomb. Because the
Yeah.
thing is, you can't go into a group and be like, hey guys, I got a new book. Check out my link, check out my website. It's like that's very frowned upon. They'll kick you out of the group. So you can't do any of that.
Yeah.
So what I
Yeah.
did instead was I just went in these groups and delivered value. I would answer questions. I would post cool manifesting methods, anything fun. And then the goal was to give so much value and to serve these strangers so much that they were curious enough to click on my profile. And I can do whatever I want with my profile. I could have a huge billboard like I do of like, I'm the
Yeah.
author of this, and here's some 5-star
Yeah.
reviews that came in, and here's, it's
Oh,
#1
amazing.
bestseller, da 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 da. So another thing was, finding a place like Facebook and, go on Reddit, go on YouTube, go on LinkedIn, go on whatever platform you want, and giving value to the point where you are establishing yourself as somebody that they're going to say, you know what? I trust this person enough to spend $1 or $4 or $10 or whatever on the book that they're selling or the book that they've written.
Definitely. And then another way you use to market is through your email list. Like you provide so much content to people on your email list, and you get people to sign up through your email list through your book, Last Law of Attraction, and just feel good. You have websites for each of the books, and they get sign up for bonus content. And from those bonus content lists, you're able to add value to them, and you're also able to kind of build rapport, and that rapport helps create word of mouth, and these people reference their friends to your material as well. So let's talk about that
Yeah.
that social marketing.
Well, so the way you describe it, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. And what I mean by that is when I released the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, I didn't have an email list. That's how I built an email list. And again, so the whole concept for me, I look at, this, well, and we'll call it a group of people to market to, just, we'll call it that, even
Yeah.
though I view them as so much more than that, but that's secondary to me. Really what the bonuses was about was, okay, let me give them this kick-ass book,
Yeah.
ideally, but then let me give them more supplemental content that will keep them engaged and keep them excited, not because I want them to think I'm awesome, not that I would mind, but most importantly, I want them enthusiastic enough and comfortable enough with the content that they actually use what I'm teaching, because I know when they actually use what I teach and they implement, that's when they get their result, and then they get their win, and then they'll tell their friends. So the way I set up the last Law of Attraction book every 3 years, like, okay, the book is enough, but by the way, here, this last chapter, here's all these cool bonuses. If you sign up for my list for free, you get the bonuses. What you don't know is I'm also going to send you about like 60 days worth of emails of giving you even more content for free on top of that. So when Just Feel Good came out, now I've got thousands of people where I could tell them about that book. I never planned to write this book or release it, but since I already had a list of people I was serving and I had a new book, why wouldn't I tell them about it and get a lot more people in the front door from the very first week?
Oh yeah, and then another important thing with that list you created from the last Law of Attraction is you're really adding value to these people. You're giving them a service, and in trade for that service, you ask for, like, if you mind, like doing a review, and like how important are those reviews on Amazon, and for readers to put reviews on Audible, like, yeah, how important is that in the process versus like the sponsored ads? Like, yeah, where are you getting the most leverage? Like, where is bringing you the most buys? Is it the reviews? Is it the sponsors? Like, what's the breakdown on that?
Yeah. So first of all, keep in mind, I don't beat them over the head with it. I only ask once. Like I think on the
Yeah.
sixth email, for I say, and I don't say please give me a review. I say, if very non-committal, like if this book brought you value, if you're inspired, if there's something that you want to share with people and you're so inspired, here's a link that goes straight to the review section, me making it easy on you that you don't even have to
Yeah.
scroll on Amazon. Like, let me make it
Yeah.
easier for you, because I understand that you've got dinner in the oven, you've got a spouse who needs your help, you've got a boss's email that you have to answer, you have all this stuff going on in your life. So I only asked them once. I'm like, if you want to do it. The whole thing about the reviews is, I would hope that asking is a small part of the process. And you get reviews by just having a great book. You get
Yeah.
reviews by when the reviews come in, you thank the people, whether you feature
Oh
them on a
yeah.
YouTube video or you respond on Amazon back when they had the functionality, or you thank them on social media. And also where, when if they write you an email, don't be a stereotypical author who's too busy or too good to reply. Actually reply and show them that you're kind of like on their team, because I really
Yeah.
am. So in terms of the review process, I don't I don't get reviews. I invite reviews. And
Yeah.
I do my part to serve, and the hope is that people will love the book and what I do for them enough that they might want to share and tell people about it. Now, as for how this fits in, like how much of a contributing factor is reviews, how much a contributing factor is advertising, how much a contributing factor is like all these different pieces, uh, which by the way, one of which includes going on podcasts and letting people know
Yep.
about that way. The truth is, Derek, I don't know. And for me, I would think maybe someone who's better with numbers might be able to determine it in a more assured way. Since I can't, I'm more about spraying bullets and like, oh, let me just serve and do like good things in all these ways. And then like, in other words, I don't know if throwing the football to the wide receiver is going to get more touchdowns, or running the football is going to get more touchdowns, or just dropping another ball and letting someone pick it up and run it to the end zone get more touchdowns. Let me do all those things and let me just get as many touchdowns as going to be available to me through all these available options. So I don't say reviews has to be top, or podcast has to be top, or advertising has to be top. Let me just do all this to the best of my ability in a way that hopefully doesn't burn me out, but also in a way that I'm actually rising to the occasion and living up to a standard of quality so that people know that they can rely on me for that. And that will hopefully lead to the sales. That will lead to positive word of mouth. That will lead to more conversions. That will lead to more reviews. That will lead to more whatever it might be in terms of this mission of mine of getting the content out there in the hands of
Mm.
other readers.
Yeah, yeah. So when the book is now published on Amazon, like what are the tasks you have to do to keep that momentum going? So one you said is to like thank people that write reviews. It's to
Mhm.
go on message boards, and so it's a lot of social media. So let's just talk about what that looks like and how do you control um, your balance, like, and not like consume yourself with social media, because like that is what these programs are designed to do, to keep us on there. And if that is not done carefully, we could get like really get consumed with social media and responding to every post. And then how do you balance that 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 social media engagement?
Yeah, well, I go in with the idea that if you are burnt out, you're no good to anybody. So the best that you can do is going at a level of volume that you can actually function at, and everybody's different. Um, Full disclosure, everyone has their own way of doing it, and for me, a lot of it is guesswork. I mean, I would say this. Um, I don't believe, I mean, unless you're hiring people, unless you've got a team working for you, unless you've got like a really well thought out plan, I think it's a lot better to do one, maybe two platforms really well than to try to do six or seven platforms well. So it's like
Uh-huh.
a thing of like pick where you excel. Do you excel more at Facebook? Do you excel more at YouTube? Do you excel more at Instagram? Is one more financially viable for you to advertise in a certain way? So there is no perfect answer for me. Even though again, burnout, I'm making sure not to do it. For me, YouTube seems like the strongest way of actually getting a return on investment, because
Okay.
you have a chance to give people free content. They watch a lot more people watch videos than read books. And if they see it, if they still don't want to read a book, there's the audiobook and there's all these other pieces. And also you can monetize YouTube. Like there's a lot of things there. But for me, there's no balance that I figured out for this. I will say this: every book is different. Again, when I launched the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, the main thing I did in the beginning was advertising on Amazon and really paying close attention every single day and adjusting bids, because you can lose money really fast if you don't, and going in Facebook groups. For Just Feel Good, it's a different piece where I haven't been posting anything on Facebook because it's a different book. It's a different kind of thing where
Yeah.
it would almost be like redundant for me. I'm still doing stuff on Amazon, but I'm honestly not looking at it as closely. And this early on into the process, I'm honestly feeling it out. Like I know well enough to know that there are things that you can do very well, and that'd be very effective. But for me, it's like literally a feeling out process. Like, okay, I've just sold 1,000 books, 1,000 copies of the books. Where do we go from here? Well, honestly, my next move is to do more on YouTube. I just haven't started yet. I would hope within the next 30 days. And I don't want to like do one video and then vanish for a month and do another one.
Yeah.
I want to be consistent. So part of this process is saying, okay, let me gear myself up. So I'm doing at least 2 videos a week. So
Yeah.
as soon as Derek, I'm confident that I can do that. That's where I'm going to choose to invest a lot of my energy, because I think that there's a lot more potential for people to learn about the book in that way, as opposed to Instagram, where like I'm already posting every day on Instagram, but it's I haven't even looked at my numbers. I have well over 1,000 followers, I think. But the posts aren't getting that much attention or energy, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
And I'm not even worrying about why. I'm gonna just go back to YouTube and do that thing. So this is my long
Yeah.
way of saying, just because I sold 100,000 copies of one book, and just because I've had 3 number 1 bestsellers, and just because I kind of know what to do, doesn't mean that I know the exact thing to do, or that for me it's a perfect, immaculate process. A lot of it
Sure.
is feeling out, drawing on my experience, but also managing myself and drawing on this in a way that I'm not going to burn out and I'm not going to be ineffective. In terms of quality content, everyone, obviously the viewer and the reader, they're the true judge of it. But I would think or hope that I'm already good at that part.
Yeah.
I want to keep getting better and better. But for me, that's not the question. That's not the concern. The bigger concern is, what is the format of the content, and how well am I going to be, and how proficient am I going to be at having output for that content so that people can continue to consume and enjoy it.
Thank you for that. Let's talk about YouTube and the keys to success you found on optimizing that platform.
Yeah, well, when you're consistent, it works out well, and when you're not, it doesn't. And I remember the biggest push of momentum that I got was where I committed to doing 100 consecutive days of new content. Like every day I posted a new video. And let me tell you, Derek, don't think that was easy, because again, Mr. Control Freak here was doing all the editing himself, all the recording, all the editing, all the everything.
Yeah.
The idea for the video is the easiest thing in the world for me. I can spit out 20 ideas right now, like ideas of content, because I know the content so well. That's the easy part. The hard part is actually going, setting up the camera, recording, and then, editing and adding graphics and then uploading to YouTube and all that piece. But, obviously, from a marketing standpoint, you want to do well on YouTube, besides being consistent, is you want good thumbnails, you want good titles, you want to respond well, like you want to pay attention to your metrics. And when a certain video takes off, try to pay attention. Okay, well, was I talking about money in that one? Was I talking about relationships about that one? What was the topic? Why did people like this one so much as opposed to other ones? Maybe I should lean into that. Although, to be candid, even though I know that's the right way to do things, I don't even lean into that stuff. I more like publish what comes to mind and what I think is going to be good, and I kind of hope it's going to work out from there, because I'm going to be bored
Okay.
if I'm just talking about like law of attraction, money the whole time. Let me just give you like 5 or 6 really good videos rather than 500 good videos, because I'm going to get bored. So
Yeah.
there's that kind of thing to consider also. Sometimes what works and what's successful might also be very boring. So people need to hopefully pick a topic that's somewhat engaging to them, because your book, your topic, your area, your niche, you're going to be stuck with it to an extent, so long as you want to stick with it. So make sure you're not even going to burn out in terms of your interest in that topic when you're helping your people.
Okay. Okay. So the things I heard, like the thumbnail is important. So that's the picture that like people see, right?
Hmm.
That's important. Um,
Yes.
w- what makes an effective thumbnail?
Well, it sounds like a cop out answer, but it's the thing that draws. It's the thing that will draw your eye, or draw the viewer's eye, when in a sea of all these other thumbnails. And
Yeah.
there's no perfect process. Sometimes it's about having one word there that people can read the word, up to 1 or 3 words. Sometimes there's no words. Sometimes it's a person's face. It's their facial expression. Sometimes there's just something about it that ideally stands out. Like for me, the latest video I published on YouTube was about my book. And
Yeah.
all I did was, with a white background, I did this really cool graphic that I use where I put in the Kindle, the print, and the audiobook kind of like slanted. So it's not just like straight up, but there's dynamic there, all white background. So that when you're looking at like his screen and you scroll past, like your eye is drawn to that.
Yeah.
And the subject title I used, if I remember right, was like in all caps, like new book, but then in parentheses, but is it meant for you? So there's almost like a
Yeah.
curiosity there, because the thing was, you read a book called The Last Law of Attraction, book you'll ever need to read. You want to make sure that you're honest and you don't do a rug pull. So part of the video and part of that idea was like, let me tell you what Just Feel Good is about, so that you don't feel like you have to get another book. Like here's how the book might be for you, and here's how the book might not be for you. Let me give you full disclosure before you spend any money, so that you don't, one, that you don't feel like you're being taken advantage, and two, that I don't feel like I'm taking advantage of you. So that title, even though
Yeah.
it was sticky and it was a curiosity gap, it was also relevant and accurate to the message that I want to give.
And it's also free. Thumbnails, unless you're paying someone Fiverr to make your thumbnails for you, it's a pretty cost, like it doesn't cost anything. Same with a good title, that doesn't cost anything.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other like free ways to generate traffic on YouTube? Like, do hashtags draw?
Yeah. So, and this is where I don't know if I'm so much the expert. My understanding is hashtags work, but you have to be, these days, because the algorithm is always evolving. So don't
Yeah.
take my word for it. Like 30 hashtags are actually going to confuse YouTube. It doesn't know what you mean. But
Yeah.
if you choose like 5 or 6, maybe 7, then it's like, okay, I know what this person's doing. Like the truth is, whether it's YouTube or Amazon, when we talk about SEO, we talk about search engine optimization. Again,
Yeah.
full disclosure, I'm not an expert, but it's my understanding that the artificial intelligence and the algorithms that run the way people see stuff, they're getting more and more sophisticated. So the best thing that you can actually do for yourself is just be as relevant as possible. If it's about the law of attraction, then say law of attraction. But if your video is not about manifesting money, don't put manifest money in there, because it might confuse it. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that was necessarily true in olden times, but again, it's like, think of YouTube and Amazon and Facebook. Think of this as actual human beings, as weird as it sounds, that are paying attention to you and saying, here's what my thing is about. And then like, okay, now that I know what your thing is about, let me tell people. And if you like, let's say, for example, like, my video is about how to, pick up lines that work on girls. Let's pretend I made that claim, right? Okay. I tell YouTube, hey, this is about pickup lines that work on girls. YouTube goes and they tell all the people that it knows that are interested in pickup lines. So it tells the people, hey, this video has pickup lines, and then they watch it, and then it turns out that there's no pickup lines. Well, then people are going to downvote it. They're going to dislike it. They're going to not watch it through, which tells YouTube that I lied to them. So now YouTube doesn't trust me, and now it's not going to promote me. This is what I mean about being relevant. Pick something in your video that you actually have, because YouTube is going to believe you enough to put you in front of people that are going to see if you're actually telling the truth or not. And when you think of it that way, the SEO and the hashtags, these things kind of take care of themselves, because when you're being honest and authentic, you're being more relevant, and then you're getting more bang for your buck, so to speak, in terms of the reach that you're going to get.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you so much. I think this is a really great conversation for so many readers of your books who have these ideas, and now they're getting to really see and like hear you speak about the process. Like in our first interview, we talked about the Last Law of Attraction book, and we even talked about Just Feel Good, on how it's a kind of a more accessible version for the people that like the law of attraction might be a bit too woo woo for. So it's like a more for just kind of the more general audience, it's like more of a dipping the toe into the water than diving into the pool.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to discuss that I think people would be really interested is in the creation of your audiobook. And you recorded the audio for all 3, and I really enjoyed them.
Thank you.
And the first step, I guess, is get a good microphone.
Yes and no. And what I mean by that is get the best possible microphone that you could afford. But full disclosure, I recorded the audiobook for The Last Law of Attraction, book you'll ever need to read, on a microphone that's no longer available, so I can't give people a link. But I
Yeah.
bought it on Amazon for $60.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, listen, if you've got a couple $100 to throw at a microphone, then do it. But really, part of the conditions are like having any decent mic, but then just having like a good studio space where there isn't external ambient noise. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like the last thing you want. So for me, for example, like even the way we're talking, people can see the anyone that's watching this on video, it's actually almost deceptive, the angle, because it looks like my microphone is sideways. It's actually
Yeah.
pointed right at me. And if there's and the only place that like noise might come is like in the direction past, like as I'm like breaking the fourth wall here. So if there's like a lawnmower down the street, the way the mic is positioned, it won't pick it up as easily. So
Yeah.
you be strategic in your microphone placement, be strategic in the space that you're choosing to record, make sure
Yeah.
that it's like as good as possible. And then, yeah, I mean, don't buy a $20 microphone, like spend at least $100, but if you can, spend at least $200 on a microphone. And by the way, experiment, because sometimes these microphones are deceptive where people think they're supposed to be speaking right into it, where really the microphone was designed for you to speak to the side of it. It actually expects you to do it. So when
Okay.
you get that microphone at the best quality that you can afford, do practice runs of recording in a natural posture with the mic positioned a certain way and just see how your voice sounds and how it comes out. Because you might be shocked that you're recording in a certain way and your voice is too quiet or it sounds too muffled or distorted or something like that. So it isn't just about choosing a microphone, Derek. It's about choosing a recording environmental strategy. And
Yeah. Great advice.
it sounds very, the way I say it, it sounds very fancy, almost like I intended. It's more about just being smart and picking a place where like that you're going to record it the right way. And P.S. pick the position where you can be comfortable, because if you're narrating, that means you're reading on screen. Like you almost you might subconsciously find yourself like leaning into the microphone without realizing, because you're scared that the microphone's not picking you up.
Yeah.
Really sit back and relax and see how the microphone picks you up, and listen to be reassured that you don't have to be over the microphone. You don't have to be uncomfortable. Because think about this. You don't want your body constricted or hunched over, because then you can't take an air, and then you can't, emote, and you can't put out a sentence. Like me, anyone like that reads my stuff that knows sometimes I have like run-on sentences. Imagine how difficult that is to speak that out in an audiobook. Like you come out of breath. And I got a
Yeah.
lot better and a lot more strategic if you hear my narration for Just Feel Good, where you can tell I almost more intuitively know when to breathe in, even during the middle of a sentence, so that I can follow through and continue. So this is a long-winded way of saying, if you're going to be doing the recording yourself, you are a vocal talent now. Congratulations. You've gone from author to vocal talent, and you need to treat yourself and your environment and the situation that way, because you want as high quality an audiobook as possible. And I'm glad, like, a lot of people enjoy the Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. They like how impassioned I sound. The truth is, I did not want to sound that impassioned. I sounded that way because I was trying really hard and stressing to make it work. And some people actually thought that I spoke too loud and I spoke too fast. So as many people, like, they love they call it like of the performance, and even
Yeah.
Audible, like that's a metric. How the person perform? I'm glad people like it. It was actually a struggle, and I try to be a lot more measured with Just Feel Good. But even
Yeah.
with that one, I couldn't help but sound like really animated and really impassioned, which works when you're trying to make a good point, but you still just want to make sure that it's an enjoyable listening experience. Fortunately, again, there's a lot of 5-star reviews across the board for both these books. So I'm a happy camper. So another
Yeah.
long-winded answer for you, Derek, about like,
No,
it's not just the microphone, it's your whole strategy, and literally treating yourself like a vocal talent, because you really are.
yeah, and then it's just learning. It's a learning process, and we're just going to learn as we do it, and just putting in those reps. And so once you recorded them, you have the audio files. Then you
Mhm.
hired someone on Fiverr to put those together for you for Audible. Is, if I remember correct, is that correct? And is there a special format? Like, how do you get those audio files, and then how do you move those onto Audible? Like, how does that process look like?
Right. So keep in mind, since I'm also doing the editing, before I ever give it to somebody to master, um, when I narrate a book, I don't just say it perfectly. I stutter, I slur, I miss a word, I blank out. So if a final, chapter like you listen is like 10 minutes, the original recording might have been 25 minutes. And I literally like, so just to keep in mind, people know before it even goes to mastering, I'm still even like, I personally use ScreenFlow, which I think costs about $100, $120. And the reason I like ScreenFlow is they have like this swiper that for the most part, it's easy to manipulate. For me, it's user friendly. I mean, some people might want to use Final Cut Pro. I mean, pick something that's comfortable for you to use and that you could navigate. With that said, I mean, you go on Fiverr and you look for audiobook mastering, you're going to find a whole bunch of people with good reviews. Like that's the beauty of Fiverr. Like they're well reviewed, and you can give them, I would hope, I mean, confirm with the person before you pay them, but you give them either an MP3 or an MP4, they'll give you something. They'll give you an MP3 back, and that's all you need to upload. And when you're uploading the process for Audible, for ACX that does Audible, they walk you through everything. Keep in mind, this might feel like a really intimidating process for people. And to an extent, it should be because you want to do a good job and there's a lot of details to handle. But also, these companies, they want you to make money because they make money. Therefore, they are going to make the process as intuitive and clear as possible. They'll walk you through the screen like, here's where you upload the files. Here's how you title the chapters. Here's what you need. You need an intro, you need an outro. Like they walk you through it. They give you everything you need to the best of their ability to make it as smooth and easy on you as possible in order to do this if you're going to be self-publishing.
Beautiful. Well, I think we like talked about from the idea of conception of that book to the first draft to all the way through rolling it out in all formats, whether that be print, Kindle, and Audible.
Yes.
So that's amazing. Any last pieces of advice you would have regarding this process for someone that is interested in writing and self-publishing something they wrote?
So I'm actually going to illustrate the last things like through the book here. Just feel good. And I guess my advice is, please feel welcome to honor a very specific vision that you have for your book, because when you do that, that's when the magic comes. And what I mean by that is, you notice here, again, anyone watching on video, it's like, it's a thin book.
Yeah.
I didn't write a book less than 100 pages because I was lazy. I actually wrote it with a very specific vision in mind. This book is meant to be a gift. It's meant to be a stocking stuffer for anyone. And I mean, I'm so grateful. People recommend Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read all the time, but that's a 200-page book. So the only way people are going to recommend that book is if they know the person can read 200 pages and if the person's interested in law of attraction. My vision for this book is it's a nice consumable thing that doesn't use the term law of attraction in the explanations, so that it is very giftable and it helps me get that message out there. Now, that's my example. Everyone out there has your own vision for your own book, but just honor it, because when you honor it, you get really excited. With that said, another piece, honor your vision in every way that you can. Like even with the cover, you can see how Just Feel Good, it's on parchment. It almost looks like a treasure map. The hidden message in here is that when most people would have like that crumpled paper and it'd have like a map and it'd have like X marks a spot, like they're looking for treasure, the vision here, which I don't know if it's ever obvious to people, is that the message is the treasure. The concept of just feel good, that advice in and of itself, that's actually the gold. And that was the vision I had for the cover. So if you have a cool vision of your cover that you can pull off, like follow through on it. Don't worry about feeling or seeming silly. As long as it makes sense, as long as there's clarity, as long as there's passion behind it, follow through. That's my final advice. Follow through on this, and really, because if you're not having fun, you're not going to stick through your vision more thoroughly enough, not only in the writing process, but in the post-writing process, in the marketing, in the follow-up, in the communication with your readers and your audience. Because to me, the work doesn't end when you finish the book, it just begins. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's more true than ever. When you're done with the actual book, the actual manuscript, then the real work is actually beginning, in terms of getting it out there, in terms of serving your audience, in terms of making an impact on the world with your vision and your words.
Yeah. So why should someone read Just Feel Good? Why should someone gift that book to someone?
So the reason they should do it, I believe, is because you have to go through the explanation to really get it. But it not only does it explain how injecting just 5 minutes a day of positive emotion into your life can dramatically enhance your life experience and lead to amazing things. Not only does it explain how that works, but just in case you're not sure about what to do from there, it also very thoroughly, very cleanly, very clearly explains how to just feel good so that you could then enjoy those results.
Beautiful. So what are you currently studying? What is the next project you have on deck? So first, what are you currently studying? What excites you most right now? And then what's the next project you're going to be working on?
Well, so the book just launched, so I'm currently just very excited about continuing to get it out there. And my passion for the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read has never waned at all. So I'm excited about all my books still. The only time like a new project happens is when I'm inspired. Like I just wrote this book now. I just finished it, so I'm a little kind of burnt out on a creation standpoint. So in terms of what's next on deck, ideally it's going to be more YouTube content in support of these books and in support of the message in order to make things more user-friendly, more easier to implement, give more manifesting methods, give more feel-good go-tos like I talk about in Just Feel Good. So really the what's on deck and what I'm passionate about is continuing on with this level of message and this level of content because it still kind of jazzes me up every single day.
Yeah, and having fun with it. That's a big piece that I really heard from you that resonated, is having fun through it all, Otherwise, like it's gonna be not like you're gonna make something you're really excited about, really passionate about, a huge bore, and maybe a bother to you. And you'll burn yourself out. And that's something that you mentioned a few times.
Yeah.
So I want you to kind of discuss to me and the audience, like what have been some tools you've put in place to ensure that you don't burn out? What are some of your what are the self-care practices that you implement that are most important to you?
Yeah, well, to give a little context for this, I can probably think to at least, anywhere from 5 to 10 moments in my life where I've like really burnt out. Like I've over through over 20 years of entrepreneurship, I've burned myself out very often. I've burned the candle at both ends in the worst way. And really it's not in service to yourself. So part of this is I've done it so many times. I have a really good intuitive feel for when it's happening again. And I give myself permission to stop. So part of these tools here, I guess a real good method that I would recommend to people, it's twofold. One, when you are feeling drawn out, don't keep burning that candle at both ends. Whether it's going to a beach if you live near a beach, whether it's going into a forest if you live near a forest, whether it's going just to a funny movie, just picking something that's going to relax you, that you're going to enjoy. It could be a spa, who knows what it might be, but pamper and take care of yourself and give yourself a break. But simultaneously, as you engage in this creative process of what you're doing, whether it's YouTube, whether it's writing a book, whatever it might be, always be gently looking for ways to get better at actually doing it so that it's a smoother process. Again, I didn't write this book in less than a month because I'm so brilliant. It's because I've done this so many times and I've continually worked on myself and worked out a process in my brain where it's more seamless that it happened for me. So always understand everyone wants success like tomorrow, and maybe it'll come for you tomorrow. But always understand that there's always a what then after that. Whether you get a bestseller tomorrow or you get a bestseller next month or a bestseller next year, guess what? Ideally, you're still going to be alive 10 years from now. You're still going to be doing stuff 10 years from now. Think of it on that level. Over the next 10 years, be intent every day about taking better care of yourself, being kind to yourself, being more intuitive, getting better at doing things in an easier way, because it's not just about the bestseller. It's about life in a long stretch. And when you do a little bit each day without driving yourself crazy, it's kind of like working out and lifting weights. You don't just max out and get an injury and then you can't work out for a year. You just do a really good workout, but a really healthy workout a couple times a week so that you can keep going week after week after week and actually get stronger and not get injured and not stop. It's about managing yourself in the best of your ability with the understanding that you're not going to be perfect. So always hedge on the side of caution of looking out for yourself so that you don't burn out when you feel it coming up for you.
That's great advice. You've given so much good advice on this conversation. I just have a few more questions for you. And
yeah, man.
This next one
I'm in no
pertains
rush.
to—
I'm really enjoying this, by the way. Thank you for all these awesome questions.
Beautiful. This next one pertains to financial independence. You've been able to achieve financial independence because your entrepreneurship. that you've learned even prior to writing these books? And we talked about that in our past conversation. But let's just talk about some steps that you think are crucial for one to achieve and attain and sustain financial independence, and then follow that up with any entrepreneur advice that you'd like to offer.
Sure. Well,
Entrepreneurial advice.
so there's a number of ways of gaining financial independence, of course. You could win the lottery. You could be really good with stocks. You could be really good with crypto. There's so many different ways. The only way that I've ever determined so far is through business or through entrepreneurship, what it might be. So since that's the only vein that I can speak, hopefully intelligently and usefully, I'll say this. If you want to do well in that regard, the financial independence that you enjoy will always be in a certain correlation to the value that you create. Meaning, and that's whether, it's a nonfiction book where you're showing people how to get healthier, or it's fiction where you're entertaining them and giving them joy in that way. Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, whether it's a book or something else, it's all about, finding problems and solving them in a way. It doesn't have to be unique to you, but it has to be a way that you can do it so effectively that you can reach people and people be interested. When you can figure out a way to really serve people and really get dialed in with that, some years will be better than others, but that to me is one of the best strategic ways of not only, being happy and being healthy, but also being successful. Find problems that you can solve them well, solve them in a way where if somebody gives you $1, you're giving them at least $10 worth of value in return, even $100 if you can handle it, and everything else from there takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm. So when did you first start writing your first book, The Last Law of Attraction, Book You'll Ever Need? How many years ago did that, you first put the pen to paper on that? How many years ago now was that?
I wrote that over the summer of 2019. So
okay.
I mean, it was kind of like milling about in my mind, throughout, I think 2018 and 2019. Even before that, I was always had a vision of doing it. The book didn't come out till November that year.
Okay, so over 5 years ago.
Is it that long now? I think
not around about 4 years ago. About 4 years ago.
Time flies, man.
Yeah. So my question is, before you started writing that book, so if you could give yourself from 5 years ago, it's some advice. So this is before you wrote your first book. You weren't writing before then. Like you weren't an author before then. You're an entrepreneur. What advice would you give yourself from 5 years ago today? Like the advice you would give today, the person you are today, what advice would you give the person you were 5 years ago?
So here's, it's a weird way of putting this. Because I wouldn't want to give the advice I'm about to share. I actually wouldn't want to give it to him yet, because knowing the way I am and the way I was, the advice would completely affect my train of thought and prevent me from going down the path. So what I'd instead like to do is I would like to magically write a letter in the mail that I would get probably a couple of months into publishing the book already, maybe 3 or 4 months. And I'd say, don't wait, start the YouTube channel now. Because if I had started it, in February of 2020, for example, I think it would have been a lot, because obviously, that was during, COVID and all that stuff. A lot, like, YouTube viewership went through the roof, and a lot of people, like, if I'd only started then, I would have a lot more people that I'd be serving my content with now. So I would want a way of telling myself to do it, but not so much in a way that would prevent me from writing the book to begin with.
And what advice now would you give yourself in 5 years, the person you'll be in 5 years? So the you of right now, you have some advice, and it's for the Andrew in 5 years from now. What advice would you like to offer that person?
I would hope that he doesn't need it, but I would say, hey, keep doing that 5 minutes or so a day, every day, of gratitude. Like, I hope you haven't stopped, because if you have, you're probably not so happy right now. Keep doing just 5 minutes a day of simple gratitude.
Yeah, and we talked about that on our last conversation, but I think it's just such an important thing. It's such an important piece of both your books is gratitude. So let's just talk about that for people that are not familiar with that gratitude blitz.
Yeah. And by the way, the thing about gratitude, I guarantee you, even people hearing it right now, it's such an overused, loaded phrase. It's like, yeah, gratitude. I know. The thing about it is, it's deceptively powerful when you're not trying to force it. And the gratitude blitz that I teach about is basically where you just set a timer, and you set it for 3 minutes, save it for 5 minutes, set it whatever you want, and until the timer goes off, just try to think of things in your life to be grateful for. You could do it around like a specific theme, like your body, or like a relationship that you have, or your job, or your business, or the room that you're in. Or it could be like a free-for-all where you're just picking things out of, plucking them out of nowhere. And it's a thing where, I tell people, like, 20 or 30 seconds into this, you'd be like, yeah, whatever, I mean, this is cool and all, but it's not amazing. But as you get like 90 seconds in, 120 seconds, 40 seconds, you're like, whoa, even though life isn't perfect, in spite of all these problems and all these things that are stressful and blah, 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 look at all I do have to be grateful for. And when you can genuinely appreciate things in your life, there's so many ways of explaining it, but no perfect way other than the life experience itself. Things just happen. You open up a doorway for more amazing things to happen in your life. And I probably said it in our last interview, so this might be like a repeat, but like the easiest example that I give of like a gratitude blitz, it's like, think right now, okay, I don't know what your money problems are. I don't know what your health problems, I don't know anything, but what about your heart right now that's beating inside your chest every second of every minute of every hour of every day of every week of every month of every year of every decade that you've been alive, tirelessly pumping blood and nutrients to all the other parts of your body that are, all the other organs that continue to serve you, your hands, your fingers, your feet, your toes, your legs, your arms, your brain, your creativity, your resilience, your eyes for watching this, your ears for hearing this, the device that you're consuming this on, and all the ways that it serves you in your life, every friend that you've ever had, every favor that's ever been done for you, every meal that's ever been purchased for you, every way that the universe or God or whoever or whatever you believe in has conspired in your favor and on your behalf in some way, shape, or form. There is always something to be grateful for. And I don't mean that your problems don't exist. I mean, whatever your problems are, let's strategically find our way past them in the best way possible by doing this very simple, easy task of thinking of these things, reminding ourselves of this, and P.S., knowing that even if Andrew is wrong, or he's lying, or he's deluded, these 5 minutes that you do this gratitude blitz are still time that you're not spending stressful over your job or your business or your spouse or your life or anything. Just the minute that you take out to do it is a win, is a victory in and of itself, no matter what follows afterwards.
Well said. So you've given yourself advice from 5 years ago, and then you've given yourself advice to yourself in 5 years in the future. Let's give advice to the listeners. Let's give advice to the listener that wants to write a book, that has an idea, but that hasn't yet started. And then the next one will be, let's give advice to that person that wants to write a book and has started and has their book, has their manuscript, at least the first draft of it, but like are now like, okay, now what?
Interesting. Well, so the first person, the one that, they have the idea, but they haven't begun writing,
Yeah.
please, I'll watch my language here. Give yourself permission to write a really crappy first draft. Because once the really bad first draft is out there on paper or on the screen, now it's out in the world, and now you have something that you can work with, that you can mold. Like it sounds over like way too simple. Get yourself to that next step by doing that. Don't try to write a perfect first draft. It's only going to hold you back. Write a really bad, crappy first draft. That's the advice I'd give to them, because that gets them to the next step. Regarding the person with the completed manuscript, I mean, that could be interpreted a number of ways. I don't know if they have their cover yet. I don't know if they have those pieces in place.
No, just the draft. They just have their first draft. They've written their
Oh,
their first draft, and maybe they have too much of a book. Like it's like they've have 3 books worth. They just have a whole bunch of writing. Um,
cool. So here's what I would tell them. It's like, all right, you have your first crappy first draft, if that's what we're
yeah,
talking about.
for
All
sure,
right,
for sure.
clean up one chapter. It doesn't even have to be the first chapter. Pick a chapter and clean it up, and make I don't want to say perfect it, but get it published ready. Just one chapter. Put yourself through that process, because once you do that, then you can do another chapter after that. And you'll notice something, Derek, in both of these situations, regardless of where the person was on their journey, all my advice really is intended to do and designed to do is getting you to the incremental next step.
Beautiful. So I want to elaborate on that. The person that already wrote that draft, because I'm thinking a friend in particular that who has done that, and she has such a big book that like it could go in any direction. So how do you take that big book and okay, it should be this, because it could be like a book of poetry, like there's poetry in there, but then there's entries, or it just doesn't have a direction, you know?
So
How do you find that direction with the draft? That
it
big,
sounds like to me this is a nonfiction book, if I'm understanding
yeah,
correctly.
nonfiction, yeah.
Um, for this person, that they've got that many directions,
Yeah.
actually, we'll go full tilt with this. I would have her write 5 different ways in which, not all the content, but like, 5 different ways in which the content can serve. For example, it could be a book of poems. That's one way that it can serve. This is about mental health. That's a way that it can
Yeah.
serve. This is about, how to manage your mind. That's what we can serve. And I would challenge her to pick 20 ways. And the hope, I mean, maybe she'll actually find 20 different ways, and that's a whole different conversation. But actually, the hope is she runs out of ways in which this can do. But now she has a list. Okay, I have these upwards of 20 things. What to me is the highest leveraging point, the perfect combination of not only serving the end user, but also that I can be passionate about and really dive into in terms of my marketing, in terms of YouTube videos, in terms of interviews. Like, which of these angles also works for me and serves the reader? Because then she's picked a vision, and then she can choose the content that lives up to that vision, and she doesn't discard the rest. She just saves it for something else.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. That really helps answer that question for that I was looking for. My last question, through all the highs and lows that is this life journey, Andrew Cap, what do you know to be true?
Wow. It's so funny because you say that and a bunch of cliches pop in my head. I'm like, do I tell the cliche? So here I'll do a cliche, and then I'll try to think of a non-cliche thing.
Sure.
What I'm certain about is that there's nothing to be certain of. Like, we don't know. Like, we don't know what's out there. We don't know who's out there. We don't know how things work. All we know, or all we are guided by, is our life experience. All I know is that me and everybody I've ever met who's been grateful for just 5 minutes a day has gotten fantastic results. Does that mean I don't know if it's a guarantee. All I know is that's all that I've ever actually known. Like, I am certain of the fact that there's uncertainty around everything, and every day what I know is true is that it is my never-ending goal to continue to embrace that, because the more you can embrace it, the better positioned you are to thrive. Which I don't think that part, that part's not a cliche, so I think that's a good note to leave on. It's like being what I know to be true is that uncertainty exists, and therefore I do my best to be comfortable and to be efficient and resolute and happy within the uncertainty.
Thank you so much. This is a beautiful way to end this conversation. So for people wanting to connect with you, they can find you on Instagram at Andrew KS
Yeah,
P
it's
or
just
Andrew Cap Insta.
Andrew Cap Insta. Yep.
Andrew Cap Insta.
Yeah, YouTube is just Andrew Cap. And more importantly, like, if you're located in the United States and you go to awesomemarvelous.com, that'll
Yeah.
take you to the Amazon US listings for the books. But really, wherever you are in the world, you can search your local Amazon, your local Audible, or for the audiobook, you could also look at Apple Books. Just look for these titles, and you'll find them waiting for you.
And I couldn't recommend them enough. I've listened to the audiobook for both those 2 books behind you, and I have the print versions, which I'm highlighting and using them as kind of guides to help me journal and just like really create positive impact in my life. So thank you so much for that. To
Thank
end
you.
things, let's create a thumbnail and let's bring our fist in to the winner's circle, a choice that we could all make. Boom. Thank you, Andrew. It's been a blessing. It's been a pleasure. It's really nice to reconnect.
Thank you, Derek, and thank you to everyone who's listening.
Yeah, and everyone that's listening, get this book, Just Feel Good. Available now. Let's get it up to 100,000 plus, like that other beauty of a book beside him.